Hey everyone, I'm Andy Petronic, and this is the Whole Life Challenge podcast. It's the place we connect with extraordinary people, ones who think differently, who have risen to the top of their field, who have vast knowledge, experience, and insights to share, as well as incredible stories to tell. They are also the ones who have figured out a way to take their life's experience and turn it into something that truly makes a difference in the world for others. These are their stories. Hey gang, it's Andy Petronic, and this is episode number 131 of the Andy Petronic podcast. If you've been a frequent listener, especially recently, you know that I've recently launched a website. It's a&nbsp.com. And really the purpose of that was to have a placeholder for my monthly newsletter. I wanted a way to reach people with the things that I'm learning. Because it's funny, the more times I tell people of things I'm learning and things I'm doing, they're incredibly intrigued because they're really outside the box. They're outside normal, and they are kind of based in a lot of the conversations that I have with a lot of the experts that I talk to on the podcast, or they're based in just various tidbits of information that I find from the web and from the resources that I've been accumulating for 25 years in the health and fitness business. So I wanted a way to share that stuff with people differently than a blog, differently than just talking about it on the podcast. So I created this placeholder, andypetronic.com, where you can subscribe to my newsletter. I'm putting old issues of the newsletter up on Medium. I've got 2 of them that have come out so far, February and March. So if you want to subscribe, go to andypetronic.com. There'll probably be new parts of that website as I develop new things, but check it out. I'd love you to subscribe to the newsletter, and I'd love to see you on there. If another resource that maybe I should put up on andypetronic.com are my living room workout videos. If you haven't participated in the Whole Life Challenge, these are 10-minute exercise videos, workout videos. They're short. They're body weight only. They can be done in your living room. They can be done in your hotel room. Most of them take less than 12 minutes. Some are, 8 to 10 minutes. They are very effective. If you go hard enough, they're quite a dose of, you'll feel like you did something for sure when you're done. And they can be done by anybody with no equipment. So if you want to find those, go to YouTube and just do a search for Andy Petronic living room workout videos. So I wanted to get that out of the way first. I was thinking about that today. We have a sponsor of the Whole Life Challenge, and it's called The Good Kitchen. And, it's funny when a company like The Good Kitchen, when a company's mission just literally seamlessly blends with the Whole Life Challenge's mission, it just creates for this amazing symbiotic relationship. And that's kind of what happened with the Good Kitchen. They provide meals for prepared. I was going to say prepared, but they're prepared meals that are pre-prepared. They show up at your doorstep via FedEx. They are organic. They're sustainably sourced. I had Amber Lewis, the founder of The Good Kitchen, on the podcast a couple weeks ago. So if you missed it, you can go back and hear really right from the horse's mouth exactly how they came about and how she sources the food that she prepares. It's unbelievably convenient. And if you've never given yourself the gift of having prepared meals sent right to your doorstep, it truly is miraculous because it eliminates any sort of thinking that you have to do, especially around lunch. For me, it could be dinner, it could be breakfast, but for me, it's lunch. I don't want to have to think. I want to know that I can just either pull it out of my cooler or pull it out of my refrigerator and it's done. I don't have to, really think about anything. So check it out. If you use the the link, thegoodkitchen.com/WLC. You'll get 15% off your first order. So check it out. I highly, highly recommend it. At least giving it a shot. Want to get something else out of the way, and this is because it's important. Fan of the week. Look, guys, I can only grow this and continue to grow this if we continue to build an audience. And the way we build an audience is by getting other people to see and hear about the podcast. So I guess the first way to do that is if you know somebody that you think would get value out of any one of the podcasts you've heard, or any one of the guests you've heard on the Andy Petronic podcast, or the formerly called the Whole Life Challenge podcast, or the Whole Life podcast, send them a link to the episode. I mean, it's like sending a newspaper article to, somebody that you think would benefit from part of that story. They will, if it resonates with them and they listen to podcasts, they will love you for it. And, I don't want you to send it to somebody if you don't think they'd like it. So, but in the other way this podcast grows is from reviews, and those are provided by you guys. If you love the podcast and you're willing to write something about it, please go to this link, bit.ly/Andy Petronic podcast. All one word, bit.ly/Andy Petronic podcast. It will take you right to iTunes. It will open up iTunes actually, and you can write a review. A 5-star rating, 4-star rating, whatever rating you want to give it is appreciated, but what really counts is your words. So if you can write something, I would be very, very grateful. This week, the fan of the week is, he or she goes by the name Bulltrout56. And the review was from February 14th, 2018. It says, "This podcast is for you. No matter who you are or where you're at in life, this podcast is for you. Andy is incredibly inviting and will make you feel like you have a nice place here as a listener. Each guest will leave you with a nugget of inspiration to go out and try new things. WLC has been incredibly positive in my life, and the community is fantastic. You'll finish each episode uplifted and empowered to make a change in your life. Highly recommended." Bulltrout, thank you very much. As always, if you hear your name read as fan of the week, I'll send you a t-shirt. So shoot me an email, podcast@wholelifechallenge.com, and I will get that out to you. So thank you so much. And yeah. So I think I've gotten all the nitty-gritty business down. Don't forget that every episode has show notes and links and all kinds of good information. If you want to get in touch with a guest, go to wholelifechallenge.com/podcast and you can find it. And remember, you can find me, podcast@wholelifechallenge.com. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter at Andy Petronic. Let's get on with things, shall we? The guest today, I mean, that is why we're here, right? We're here because we have a guest and we have a conversation, and it's an amazing conversation. I mean, I'm blown away by the number of amazing conversations I've had since starting this thing, and they continue to just build, and this one is no exception. I'm speaking with Dr. Sujit Sharma, and I'm going to do something I don't always do. I'm going to read some of what he talks about in his bio, because it's very applicable for how this podcast goes. Dr. Sharma, by the way, he's trained from he's a Harvard Medical School trained pediatric emergency room doctor. But I'm going to just read this. Over the first 10 years of his career, Sujit describes how he and his colleagues observed obvious signs of a worsening childhood obesity epidemic. Working in a medical practice responsible for well over 100,000 childhood ER visits per year, you naturally get to observe trends, especially as they relate to the physical state of health for the average American kid. Obese toddlers, as well as adolescents, showing signs of what was usually adult-onset chronic disease. These were things that used to be rarely seen, but became increasingly common in just a single decade. Around that time, Sujit became friends with a holistic trainer, health specialist named Liddell Hill, who helped him realize two things. One, he actually knew close to nothing about nutrition, even though he was a doctor. And two, the best way to fix our modern health crisis was to make healthy eating, especially whole plant-based foods, easier and popular. That's where I'm going to stop reading and tell you that this episode is about his development of a product called Chuice. That's not what the whole episode's about, but he met Liddell, who was the creator of this juice/food called Chuice, and he became such a believer in the product and its mission and how it has the potential to be a game changer for so many people because of the portability and convenience of the packaging and how different it is. And I will tell you that he sent me a case of Chuice, and I thought, oh, yeah, I've had pulpy juice before. This is not pulpy juice. This is like drinking a salad. It's very strange. It's a very strange experience. In fact, they're changing their label, their packaging, because it's confusing to people. It's awkward. In fact, their tagline is "It's awkwardly delicious." You lift the bottle up to your mouth and their juice comes in, but you also get a mouthful of pulp of chopped up vegetables and nuts and herbs, and it's delicious. But it's really, really, really different. So Sujit is now part of the startup world. In addition to being a full-time doctor, he really has 2 full-time jobs. Like I said, highly educated. We have a very far-ranging conversation, not just about Chuice, but about the state of healthcare in this world and how our current medical system really isn't doing our people any justice, and how that needs to change. So you're going to love this conversation, and you're going to be interested in this product. It's out of Atlanta, Georgia. So if you're local to Atlanta, you might have already seen it in Whole Foods. If you're not in Atlanta, Georgia, you can get it online. You can order it from Chuice.com. And I love it. I love the story. I love the product. I love Sujit's passion for helping people of the world, helping families, helping kids. And it's really cool. So you're going to love this conversation. Let's do it. Get ready for the one, the only Dr. Sujit Sharma. Welcome to the Whole Life Podcast.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
People have already heard your introduction, so they know a little bit about what you do and what you're up to in the world. But I was really intrigued by, we got introduced from my friend Jimmy Rosenberg, who was the founder of Evolution Fresh, which if anybody out there has ever bought a juice at Starbucks, you have had one of my friend Jimmy's juices, which is kind of a cool thing. I mean, to be that known, I mean, in Starbucks, I mean, where would you get wider distribution than Starbucks? Yeah. It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
But Jimmy introduced us and said, "Hey, Andy, I think you've got something that Sujit's got something that you really would like to check out and see in it." And I didn't really realize how different it is until you sent me some of what the product's called, Chuice. I was like, I get it. It's got some pulp in it, and I've had pulpy drinks before, and it's a massive departure from juice with pulp in it. So, what could you just so people know what the heck we're talking about? Could you give us just a quick what is it, and then we can get into a lot more of the conversation and the details.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate it, man. The Chuice is definite. It's we call it awkwardly delicious. It's a new category of food.
Did you say awkwardly delicious?
Awkwardly delicious.
Awkwardly. It is. That's a great way to describe it. It is. I didn't want to say that, but it is. You put it in your mouth and you're like, what do I do with this? Yeah.
Yeah. It's as a drink, especially. This is it's more food than drink. It's plant-based whole food. I think a couple of years from now, people will think that, wow, that just makes sense. Why didn't we do that sooner? Instead of just, squeezing liquid out of plants, why not, keep more of the whole plant? And so my friend created this product from years of his own kind of learnings and wisdom of, grandfather who raised my friend Liddell, who created Chuice, who was into natural healing and plants. And so Liddell wanted to create something that was portable and really met our physiologic needs, so something that was really more like whole food rather than just a drink. And so he created Chuice. It's 35 fruits, vegetables, herbs, nuts, and seeds. And so it is, rather than just juiced, it's a lot of chopping and blending. And so we're kind of keeping the whole plant in there because there's a lot that we are wasting if we throw away out of the stuff. And it more than ever, we're learning now that the importance of eating whole food is tremendous in terms of the way our bodies work. So,
would you say it's? I mean, because a couple thoughts go through my head. Like, why then juice form? Why is it juice at all? Why isn't it just chopped vegetables in a little to-go tin?
Yeah, right. It's Liddell. It's a great kind of story. He created it for himself. He wanted to put together the best nutrients, both kind of vitamins and minerals, as well as high in fiber and things that he had researched over time that work well together, and make it just portable and easy for him. So it just started for something he created, a great fuel for himself. And
portable and easy meant it was a juice in juice form, right? I mean, that was part of
in a bottle, which is interesting because that's going to change for us.
Oh, really?
Packaging is everything, and
right.
it really is a food disguised as a drink, in that it's in a bottle. But the bottle, we found, kind of really doesn't. It gives people are accustomed to seeing beverages and drinks in bottles.
Yep.
And this really isn't functionally. It is. Most people know nowadays it's better to eat an apple than to drink apple juice.
Yep.
So this is much closer to that experience in a branded product. That when I was introduced to it, I was very skeptical.
Well, it's also very interesting. My first experience when I tried it, is I didn't know what to do because you're right. I'm used to seeing a bottle and drinking, and I put it in my mouth. It was very confusing because I put it up to my lips to take a drink, and all of a sudden I got this big wad of vegetables and great stuff. But it was like, whoa, this is different, and part of me was a little disgusted. Part of me was like intrigued. And once I had the first bottle, I was like, this is delicious. This is fantastic. But the very first thing was, it was weird.
It's awkward.
Yeah.
What's really interesting is the psychology of the package, because we do want to transition to something that's going to be more food-like.
Yep.
Rather than a bottle that looks like, the bottle's great because it's portable.
Right.
But, why not have a product that embodies everything? Something your body needs and your nutrients your body's missing, especially fiber. And then, but also, we're going to change the packaging unit so it is going to be more of an eating experience because Chuice is an experience.
Yep.
And, it may be, for me, when I do sit down and enjoy it, and I've tried it out of different containers, especially when I'm forced to sit down and appreciate, every bite and what went into it. It kind of leans towards the idea of mindfulness in the eating, not just like we're always rushing.
Right.
We always have time. We always have time to there is time we can make to sit down, and even if it's, like idea of meditating for 15 seconds, it's like, there is some power in that deep breath, this thinking and appreciating where all this, these nutrients the earth has given us and where they come from.
So have you tried, I hadn't even thought of it because it comes in a bottle again. Have you experimented with eating it with a fork or a spoon or
Mm-hmm.
like other ways?
Yeah. That's exactly where we're going with it. We thought we would have to thicken the product more to really put it in a new container that was more like a food.
Yeah.
But we were surprised. It is like you said, you like get this rush of stuff. It's perfect to eat out of a small little bowl or jar.
Yep.
And it is, and with a fork or a spork, that could be a campaign for us. Bring the spork back.
Eat the awkward juice with a spork.
yeah. It's perfect. It's a good throwback.
Get all the weird things in there all at once.
They are weird. Definitely. We fully acknowledge it. It is weird. We see that when we sample that people. You see people. They see it from a distance and they're like, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah.
They're like, there's that, like you said, that almost disgusted thing. But then they try it and they're like, "Oh, okay, I get it." I like the idea, the description we're going to be going more towards is a juicy super salad.
Right.
Especially in a new container. I think.
Will you be able to pick the container up once you've eaten the solids and shoot down the liquid?
Yep. Yeah. We were a little surprised when we found this little kind of this nice jar container that actually is very conducive to both. So that you have much more room right now. People will say like, I can't get all this stuff out.
Yep.
That's still in there.
Yeah, right. I've had that trouble too. I've rinsed it and I've actually just put good water in it and shaken it up and then drink the water.
That's what I do too. And it's I don't drink enough water anyway. But then it's it's tasty and it's still nutrient dense because you're still getting all of the little remnants of tiny bits.
What's actually in the juice that makes it that keeps it from being able to making it not juice, like just the solid? Like what's in the juice itself? Is there something in the processing that causes the juice to create juice, or?
No, something we do. We juice about a third of our ingredients are actually juiced, and then 2/3 of our ingredients are just chopped and blended. What
are some of the ones that are juiced?
Apple, pineapple, beets, the celery, the pear.
Now, do you juice it and remove the pulp from all those things, or is the pulp?
So it's a centrifuge juicer. Okay. So it's mostly juice. There is some pulp that's coming out. But it's mostly just the juice. So with all of the leafy green vegetables and the herbs, things like the ginger and the nuts and the seeds, those are all whole. They're not pressed. They're actually or juiced. They're chopped or blended. So you're getting even our kiwi. When we put kiwi in there, it's washed, but we don't even peel it. It's chopped.
Oh.
There's more nutrients
to the skin. Yeah, great.
Yeah,
cool.
Than there is probably in the fruit.
It's really interesting because we've always steered people clear of drinking any fresh pressed juice that's just fruit juice, because it's void of all the pulp, and the speed at which it affects your insulin levels is just, your blood sugar levels, and then thereby your insulin levels is just staggering. People think they're drinking a healthy drink and they have beet carrot juice, or not beet carrot, but beet apple juice, and it just gives them a massive spike.
Right.
But it's interesting now when you're adding vegetables back in that are actually full of all the good stuff. What your body does with that? I don't know. Have you tested that? Actually, have you done blood? Have you done blood testing with how it affects blood sugar levels and whatnot, as opposed to just straight juice?
Yeah, we did a clinical trial at Emory School of Public Health a few years back, and we looked specifically at your heart disease biomarkers. In this case, pulse wave velocity, which is it gives a sense of your cardiovascular health. Pulse wave
velocity?
Velocity, yeah. It's a fancy word for just basically measuring the stiffness of your arteries. And it's a known tool for helping to getting in a short-term basis to measure how healthy your blood vessels and your cardiovascular system is.
Is it measured through like ultrasound or how?
Yeah, it's a probe, machine that is able to then measure the velocity going through vessels. So and then be able to help take a measurement for the compliance or the how stiff or distensible the vessel is.
Huh.
And then that relates to your cardiovascular health. You want your vessels to be less stiff.
like
and more
supple,
compliant.
more like supple
Right.
and able to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that has so much to do with the nutrient density. But the other thing we measured in there was also fasting blood sugar. So we had 21 participants, and they consumed Chuice as a lunch meal replacement for 14 days in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw a statistically significant improvement in the biomarker for the heart disease biomarker. And we saw in over 80% of the participants improvement in fasting blood sugar. And that
you had a control group also?
No, what we did is as you measured every single day, we did their measurements, and we looked at for 3 days prior to the study starting. We actually measured, try to get an average baseline for their fasting blood sugars before they started.
Okay.
The Chuice.
Yep.
And then we measured that kind of going forward. But I think, most juice companies would never even want to participate in that because
right.
It's not, it's different, and I think it's an interesting evolution. I think a few decades ago, the beverage industry convinced consumers that, having a juice in a bottle was the equivalent of having a salad. And we all fell for it, and we still do, because we are all looking for that magic pill, right? And so it just seems healthy. I think most doctors I know would have most of it until a few years ago.
I
knew a lot about nutrition. I realized I knew nothing, and it was a big, eye opener. But I think the good thing about what's happening with all the, the juice market that's out there is just at least introducing people to the, plant-based nutrients and making plants popular again.
Right.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Unless you're somebody who is going and burning those calories immediately with a workout, having really expensive juice that has no fiber, it's going to get stored. It's converted to glycogen and can eventually get stored to fat. So for the average consumer in America, we need whole food products. We need ways to, everyone knows that you need to eat more salads. How do you make make it easier and fun and popular to do so?
Yep.
And so that's what we've created.
And convenient. I mean, that's what I think you're really hitting on. It's funny. One of the things we've done in the challenge is to think about some of the different populations that we would love to have participate in the challenge. And one of the things we thought about when we created the Kickstart level, which is the, I say quote unquote lowest level, although it's the one I play. It's the, we're thought about truck drivers. Like, what do you do with a truck driver who wants to change his life and turn their, who's used to eating on the road, who stops at Subway, they stop at rest stops on highways, and how do you got to give them something that that's palatable, that's easy, that is not going to make them, have to take a 30-minute break to shovel down a salad if they're on a deadline. That convenience factor for, I think, these masses of people that are, that are just around these horrible choice foods all the time is such a big deal. And that's one of the things I really love about Chuice is. Yeah,
we've had some fans who've been truck drivers, and they definitely love that. They have a cooler in their truck, but we found a lot of data out there showing them that in the whole convenience channel in general, where a lot of truck drivers obviously are stopping at gas stations and picking stuff up. This is $280 billion a year of in-store sales in the convenience market.
Yep.
And at least a third of those consumers are now looking for healthier products and are willing to pay a little bit more for them. And you see the trends, even here in the Southeast, we go into gas stations and all of a sudden you're seeing apples and oranges, that just a few years ago, you never saw that, and so it's a slow, steady change. We just need to speed that change up. Yeah. I feel like you're saying for those people who really could benefit from a whole life challenge, or just ways to really adopt a healthier lifestyle day to day, better decisions, and finding how better they feel. It's rewarding when you see that happen for people.
Yeah, I'm always skeptical about those fresh fruits in mini-marts. Like, I'll get an apple from Whole Foods, but I've yet to pick up an apple that I really wanted to eat from a mini mart. I'd almost rather have a hot dog. I mean, like I know that doesn't make any logical sense.
I know what you mean. It's interesting. It's funny. Yeah, it is hard. Yeah, I think I need to eat more plants. I mean, I don't. I definitely I can identify what sort of like who our target demographic is. It's just people looking for a more convenient way to get more plants in their eating. I'm not 100% plant-based by any means.
Yep.
And I really I'm diverse in my eating, and my habits fluctuate, and sometimes I'm better than other days, but
I go through the same thing. I mean, I if it's not easy, so many of the vices around food are so easy that they have an unfair advantage over vegetables. Like it's not that I wouldn't eat vegetables, but if I have to go into the vegetable drawer in my refrigerator and pull out a head of lettuce and wash it and then chop it and do all the things that, it takes me 20 minutes to make a salad that I like. Yeah. That's one of the things I love about a salad bar at Whole Foods is, it's just all done for you. The other interesting thing I found about a year ago at Whole Foods, we were having a corporate retreat. I think I just talked about this on the podcast. We were going out to Big Bear, and I was looking for places to stop for lunch on the way out. And I thought, we'll just go to Whole Foods, and we were going to be out. It's about 90 minutes east of like the coast. We're near Santa Monica, where you turn to go up to the mountains, and that's where I kind of wanted to stop and eat. And there's not a Whole Foods within an hour of there. Once you leave downtown LA and like Hollywood and the main part of LA, where they're everywhere. I mean, I have 3 Whole Foods within 3 miles of my house. Once you leave this part of LA, they just don't exist. And like that's the world. I didn't even I know that logically, but it hit me smack in the face when I was looking for where would I go? What would I do? Yeah. You could go to Ralph's, which, hey, nothing against Ralph's, but they probably, I don't know if their stuff in their salad bar is organic and, but yeah, just that's normal. That's the normal, not what I have. I live in a bubble.
Right. I think a lot of us who are in this space and trying to promote wellness, I think what's driven a lot of it for me has, my day job, which is usually at nighttime, I'm, seeing kids in the emergency room. And so I've noticed things over the last 20 years of practicing, like in terms of just the change, this palpable change in terms of childhood obesity. And for everyday people, like parents of the kids I'm taking care of, it's been a bit eye-opening. At one time, I thought it was a bit about personal responsibility, a bit more like is often touted. But as you said, the cards are stacked against people who want to make better decisions because there's, let's say if you could equate a lot of the packaged foods out there in the market today, especially how, the issues with sugar and just the addictiveness and the fact that we know that sugar can spike a response in the brain that is similar to what a cocaine addict experiences. And if you equate, that sugar and packaged food to a drug, it's like you go to your doctor's office once a year, they say, you got to eat better. And then on your way out, you hit the lobby, you hit your car, you open your phone, you look at the billboards on the way home. You're inundated with suggestions and sort of enticement to use that drug that is probably causing a lot of the problem. It's, and it's not, and there's a solution, which is it's not really just issue of sugar, it's sugar devoid of fiber. I mean, carbohydrates are not evil. It's the issue is making it more of a whole food rather than, than just drinks and packaged products that are delicious, but they lack fiber. They lack what the one nutrient Americans are missing most, which is fiber. And like you said earlier too, like blood sugar spikes. I see 10-year-old kids with signs of type 2 diabetes. I rarely saw that 15 to 20 years ago.
You're in the ER, so you're not seeing them for these things. You're seeing them for other things. You're seeing them for broken bones and sprained ankles and, flu.
Being ill, the flu. We just got done with it, busiest flu season I've ever experienced, and so we were just inundated with record volumes of patients. But yeah, so you're right. We're not, this is stuff that I'm.
These are just incidental
seeing.
things you notice.
Yeah, there's for darker skinned individuals, you can actually, there's findings. You can see there's a finding called acanthosis nigricans, which is a Latin term for this change to the back of the neck, where you can see signs of insulin resistance. So as you said, your blood sugar spikes, your insulin spikes. And if you're doing that on a daily basis repeatedly, eventually insulin gets your body gets unhappy. Your cells don't recognize insulin. So the receptors become insensitive to it. So that insulin resistance, what it can then produce is this finding, the acanthosis nigricans on the back of the neck. And so you're examining
Is it like seeing like rings on a tree? Is it like just
it's thickening, darkening the skin, and kind of velvety kind of texture to it, and then and wrinkly, and it's hard to miss when you do see it. It's usually the back of the neck. But if things change in your diet and whatnot, does it go away, or is it just a problem? Yeah, I'd imagine if in the same way that we know that a lot of people who have signs of type prediabetes can reverse it through dietary change. And,
so you just notice this. You're not even really doing blood testing or anything. You just notice is this a particular symptom that you just?
That's a classic finding. Typically in obese individuals, but. It used to be something we'd exclusively see in adults. 15 to 20 years ago, rarely saw it in kids. And now I see it routinely, 10-year-old kids. I had a mom ask me recently about can you tell me what this is in the back of the neck? And her son didn't seem overtly obese. He was like the new normal, and it is.
Give me a picture. How old, how much did he weigh? How tall was he?
So 10-year-old, he was, he's under 5 feet tall, close to 5 feet tall, and he's probably 120, 130 pounds.
Okay. Athletic looking or
nope.
Just,
No.
Okay.
No, not. And he, it's really, it's a mixture of, it's not just overt obesity for people. It's kind of how they eat, and it's the physiology. I was always taught that physiology rules. And, I still believe that to this day because I'm a science nerd. And I just, it's eventually the way you're eating, what we're eating on a much bigger level, not just, the issue of the processed foods, et cetera. It's just it's foods there's less fresh food being consumed, less whole food being consumed. And so, less fiber. And so their insulin's spiking up and down, and it's driving chronic disease. We're finding out more and more. And as we learn more about the human microbiome, it's kind of exciting for me recently with Chuice is how science is now caught up with Chuice, in that we are really starting to understand the importance of that this entity within us, the microbiome, 100 trillion cells from bacteria, virus, fungi that actually coexist with us. They play a supremely integral part in our physiology and how we defend ourselves from infection and how we heal and recover. And it's gotten me even more excited than ever. I've been doing Chuice stuff now as CEO for over 5 years, and it's been a roller coaster ride and a learning process. But now, as we start to understand that there is a second brain, within us, I think that this, when we talk about gut instincts, there's something real about this. There's a natural, separate entity within us that lives there. And when we treat it well and feed it well and nourish it, people talk about probiotics. That refers to the good bacteria within us. But probiotics, the good bacteria, thrive and are nourished by prebiotic fiber.
Right.
And when they are fed that, nourished with it, they produce one of the byproducts they have is mucus. So they produce a mucus layer in between, sort of where in the in the intestine where our good bacteria live. The mucus layer separates that from the intestinal lining. So the inner lining of your intestine, the epithelium, is that these cells, when they get too close to the good bacteria, and the mucus, because the mucus layer is thin, that provokes inflammation and inflammatory responses, not just right there in the gut, but also can have systemic or effects throughout your whole body. And that's like, it's incredible. It's incredible because I've always been, what we're trained is in medicine, everything is about methodology in research, and really going through methods to understand and make sure we're not just promoting something that really doesn't have a good basis for asking the question they were trying to ask and answer. And there's phenomenal work being done now showing that, like, thicker, the healthier the mucus layer and the distance, the happier your body. And because if most Americans get 10 to 15 grams of fiber a day, they should get at least 25 to 35. Men more than women. There's no ceiling on it. Our prehistoric ancestors, likely consumed between 60 to 90 grams of fiber a day.
Yeah.
And that, that nourishes your probiotic bacteria, microbiota, and all of a sudden everyone's happily coexisting. But now we wonder why chronic disease is going up. We have a good sense of it. It's like because we're eating crappy food more often, and we're eating on average more, and then an additional 200 calories more per day than we did 30 years ago. So I'm as invigorated as ever that, and believe that it's important to try and get there faster to promote, making it more convenient and interesting to eat whole food.
It's amazing how hard it is to get that fiber. I recently have become kind of aware of how little fiber I get. And that sound, by the way, everyone, is what it sounds like to drink, eat Chuice.
I'm eating it as we speak. Yeah.
That was the bottle. That was the bottle knocking against the microphone.
Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. It's good. It's totally good. It's it's authentic. If you were chowing down on like a Hershey's bar, we should probably not do that.
Yeah. There's a time and place for
exactly.
Hershey's, but,
exactly. No, I've become aware. I've actually started to supplement with fiber called inulin, which I love because it's taste free. It's a little powder, and I can put it in my coffee. I can put it in I can put in a glass of water. I don't even really notice it. And it gives me just a little bit more fiber. I'll get somewhere between 5 and, right now I'm playing with somewhere between 5 and 10 grams a day of just added fiber that I'm not getting,
Right. And so in that case, inulin is a prebiotic fiber.
Right.
So
right.
there is, fiber in general is a big class, is a non-digestible carbohydrate from plants. So like, as we've said with juices, you squeeze a liquid out, but you leave all this architecture behind. I always tell people the plants have been around for 1 billion years more than we have. They've survived, ultraviolet light and infections from the environment. And inside of them is a host of nutrients and things that help them survive. But fiber is that non-digestible part that humans can't digest, but our bacteria can.
Yep.
And that's so they digest it. But now, so not all fiber is prebiotic fiber. So inulin is a great example, like they call it an oligosaccharide, a non-digestible oligosaccharide, meaning smaller kind of molecule, but it has prebiotic features to it, meaning that it helps to nourish certain types of probiotic bacteria. And so there's I think I'd sent you this article from New York Times. They had interviewed researchers, one in Denmark and one here in Atlanta at Georgia State University. And they used inulin as their prebiotic fiber to study in mice. And they found just incredible change in responsiveness to adding inulin to their regimen, and where it was clear that it created a better probiotic environment, and they had better modulation of inflammation. Whereas in the high-fat diet control group, they saw all sorts of havoc, hormonally, etc. They call it sort of the Donald Trump diet.
The high fat diet without fiber, without inulin, without soluble fiber or any kind of fiber, really. Processed food, the processed food, high fat diet.
Yeah, and so, but they also showed, the nice thing was that they showed that there could be reversal, that for the mice who did have that high fat diet, that when they gave them inulin, it improved their probiotic environment, improved how they modulated inflammation. And so there is reversibility. The next phase that they mentioned in this article, which was interesting, was that they wanted to go from, with the inulin that's out there, that it's processed, and it's they know that different types of prebiotic fibers they all help to nourish different types of probiotic bacteria. And so because there are different strains of probiotic bacteria that are good ones that we need, and they're different nutrient sources they like. So I approached the researcher at Georgia State and kind of told him what Chuice was, and then he became very interested, and because sort of was the next phase where they're going. So now they're going to be studying using Chuice to give the mice in their next study to compare to the control. They're actually going to want to compare it to apple juice, giving apple juice to mice and versus giving Chuice. And so we're excited about that, sort of getting our next clinical trial or next research study sort of on the ground.
How long do those trials take? To set up, case, once you get the idea and you get somebody on board to do a trial, is it 6 months? Is it 2 years? Is it No,
it's actually pretty short. I think this is something they can run over a couple of weeks.
Oh, wow. Cool.
But they already have, the lab is already set up for it.
Right. Right.
They have a great baseline and great methods for measurement. And they're doing some incredibly fancy work in terms of the hormonal responses that they're testing. And it's interesting. It's great work that they're doing that I think is going to continue to open up the field and help us understand just how important and how integral this is to how the way we live.
Your internet is doing some strange things. I'm not sure if.
I'm not sure it's mine or.
I don't know if it's actually. I can't really tell on this thing whose it is, but you were kind of breaking up. So whatever, we'll just watch it and see what happens.
Yeah.
Cool. Is this lab? This is at University of Georgia, right?
Georgia State. Georgia State University.
Georgia State. And are they doing? Are they just doing ongoing studies around this one area, or are they doing?
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff?
This lab is sort of specialized too. So in this lab, they have mice, and they have a good standard for both how to study their epithelium and their response overall, and look for changes in the internal anatomy of these mice overall.
And are they just focusing on the internal anatomy of the gut, and that's all the kinds of studies they do, or are they doing all kinds of stuff?
They're actually doing other stuff too, and they look at other changes. For instance, just whether if some tumors showed up somewhere in these mice, so they're doing more than just sort of the gut itself. They're looking overall the whole digestive system and any other obvious changes to their anatomy and their physiology.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's great. It's funny when you said that when you're talking about the gut, and it's radical to me, the number of cells in the bacteria, the number of bacterial cells that we have in our gut. I can't remember. I think Dr. Perlmutter talked about it in his podcast. Like it's in the trillions. The number of
100 trillion.
100 trillion. Which, and how many cells are in our body? There's more
less than that.
Right. Well, way less though. It's like logarithmically down. It's
right. It's
not even in the ballpark.
It's there's more. This if you weight it on a scale, your microbiome can weigh as much as 5 pounds.
Wow.
Collectively, yeah.
Wow.
Second brain is real.
Yeah, right. It's funny because I'm doing some work with a place here in LA called the Human Garage. I'm about to have a few of their therapists on the podcast, and one of the things they talk about is how not only is the brain. It's funny because for 50 years in the world, I've always thought of the brain as kind of the control center of the body. Like it controls everything. It's not just another organ. It's the thing that runs us. And
right.
There's evidence to point to. Obviously, now we're talking about the gut, but there's they talk about how the fascia in the body actually is more running the show than the brain is. The brain is supporting the fascia, which is responsible for kind of keeping this whole thing together, this whole organism together. You can't really separate muscle and connective tissue from fascia. It's everywhere. It's ubiquitous in the body. So it's really interesting the new ways we're seeing the body and how it functions and what actually is in charge, what's controlling things.
Well, it's interesting the way science evolves, and I think science is not perfect. We're all human beings, who are, asking questions and trying to find good ways to answer them. But I think through generations and over decades, we look at it I see it as the window. We crack the window open, and what we don't know until several decades later is how far open that window was.
Right.
When vaccines and antibiotics were first developed in the 19th century, it was a breakthrough, for medicine and for helping eventually for lifespan to increase from over the course of 100 years, from 1900. You and I were probably past our due. That lifespan for a man was around 44.
Yeah.
And now it's 77. But now it's going down because of the way we eat. But the immunity idea, like understanding immune system, evolved more and more from there into the 50s. And Linus Pauling was this famous chemist who really started studying vitamin C. He was a Nobel Prize winner, and his work before he died was really focused on vitamin C. And it just seemed to make sense to him and to a lot of people. That this is antioxidant, etc. And at that point, we thought the window was half open. We really, But now with what you're talking about is absolutely true with the gut, and what we are realizing, whether it's fascia and how the oldest epithelium kind of responds and plays a role in immune function. We're just cracked the window open, and what we'll know about, I find out now that most of the probiotic stuff that's sold on the market, a lot of it is, either it doesn't have enough of the probiotic in there in the counts. You should be looking for stuff that has at least 5 to 10 billion CFUs, colony, whatever that is, and it is a colony forming unit, CFUs. And the other thing is then if it's one thing to take probiotics, it's another thing then to nourish them. If you're not nourishing them with prebiotic fiber, then you might not be doing them justice in the end, because again, the closer they get to the lining of your intestine, the worse off for your body.
Right.
If they don't have that thick, healthy mucus layer between. All of a sudden, mucus is going to become a popular thing to talk about.
Yeah, right. That's weird.
Exactly.
That used to be the grossest word to say when I was growing up. Mucus. Nobody would.
When we're working in the ER, it's easy to, you can talk about diarrhea and you're sitting there at your lunch break. You got to eat, it's like, it's kind of real life. You stop and say, what if our friends walked in and kind of, they'd be disgusted.
You live in an ulterior, you live in an ulterior universe for sure, and as an ER doc for sure. I can't just imagine.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm fascinated by all. I look at how I think scientific arrogance has hurt us different times. I look at the way cholesterol became so popular, with a couple of studies came up 30, 40 years ago, and all of a sudden the food industry shifted.
Yep.
Based on, again, what we thought was we just opened the window wide open.
Right.
Cholesterol is bad.
Right.
And it is the marker that's going to tell us about heart disease. So food industry responds by getting rid of fat and trying to decrease cholesterol. There was some attention to sodium as well. Probably not enough. But then we come several decades later and realize, well, it's not just cholesterol. Heart disease is driven by three main things. It's cholesterol and intravascular inflammation and platelet aggregation. And nutrition plays a role in all of these things. And we've seen chronic disease and heart disease go up despite the food industry making this massive shift starting 3 decades ago. And now look at where we are. It's actually worse. Why? Partly because we, that little bit of that arrogance that we swung the window wide open, and now we know what the problem is. We look back like we didn't know what the problem.
Well, it's
we were rushing to it.
I think because of the way our economy works and the way businesses work, companies work, it's very hard to stuff that genie back in the bottle. They've built an empire. They become incredibly good at what they do. Like I'd say 30 years ago, we were just starting to get good at this stuff. But now, people have entire sections of their businesses designed to how do you make food more addicting? How do you, what taste triggers do you stimulate in order to do these things? And I think we've created a monster. Because now these companies are forced to answer to shareholders about profits. If we make, McDonald's is trying to change gears, as is Coca-Cola, but they're rallying around products that are systematically destroying the health of our population. Right.
It's irrational. It's not sustainable by any means. Yeah. And, you see there's a shift. Food industry, the big food companies have never been on the hunt to acquire, companies that can innovate faster than they can. Right. And, the problem is getting people to admit, like I look at it like tobacco, and marketing around tobacco 40, 50 years ago, doctors used to promote Camel cigarettes, give your throat a vacation.
Yeah.
Our special menthol blend is easier on your throat. And, it's insane. We look at it as insane now.
Yeah.
And it's going to take a few decades for us to look back at food advertising today and marketing. As you mentioned, marketing is everything. It's not just the ad you see. It's the way the package is designed. It's the way that the language is written.
Yep.
The colors they use, the positioning in the store, the pricing they put on it. And we're going to look back at it as irrational. There's this ad of Larry the Cable Guy promoting Prilosec. And in an adjacent ad, he's promoting Uncle Pete's hot sauce that they use as part of the fried chicken batter recipe. So you have Prilosec on the one side, take a pill, why deal with the pain? But whatever you do, don't put down the fried chicken or the Philly cheesesteak.
Right.
Just don't change your life for that.
Right.
Just take the pill. And so we all fall for this idea, this magic pill, and it can be people who are health nuts themselves who wanted to find a quick fix, or it can be, everyday American sitting on a couch who's, every decade has its ab lounger.
Yep.
And it's those are all, to me, these are all pills. This snake oil from 100 years ago is still being sold today.
Yep.
Because we believe it. We want to believe that science has evolved enough to help us find something that makes it so we don't have to work so hard.
Well, aren't we genetically wired that way? We're genetically wired to be as efficient as possible at all times. So, if you're sitting every day, your body's going to start shut down the mechanisms that allow you to stand up straight and allow you to walk straight. And that's part of the beauty of the human body. Like it's allowed us to survive. So of course we're doing it consciously. Now we're not just physiologically responding to stuff, but we're actually consciously trying to, how can life be easier? We're it's this quest for an easier life that drives me completely batty.
Right. Well, I absolutely agree. You don't have to look any further than look at what, there's data very concerning, showing that the next generation of Americans are not going to live as long as the next.
Right.
Here we are talking about, that moment when, with artificial intelligence and we could, in all these different things, that we'll be able to live, longer. And it's like, wait a second, we're already killing ourselves the way we eat. And we can't really think about, this epiphanous moment and before we actually start to address the problem is that, most average Americans are, eating in a way that's socially acceptable. And that social acceptability is driven by marketing rules like it was for tobacco. Half as many people, used to be 1 million people a year used to die from tobacco related causes, now 500,000. Still too many, but took 50 years of regulation around marketing to help kind of pull back and curtail what was socially, idea of whether or not socially acceptable. Now, can't smoke in restaurants. People used to think that was an assault on their American rights.
Right.
Can't
smoke in the back of an airplane. I remember when that was thought upon as of course you can smoke in the back of an airplane.
Well,
where else would
go
you
to the back?
Yeah. It seems ludicrous today.
It's fine back there.
Yeah, for people that weren't alive back then, it just seems, what? You could smoke on an airplane? It just seems silly.
It is crazy. And that's culture change, and I talk about this in medicine. We have the same issue with this irrational way we consume things there's a parallel between food and, the way we as healthcare providers consume technologies around us. The commonality is that we do things because we can, not because we have to.
Yep.
And that's an American cultural norm. But culture changes. When I was growing up, if it wasn't raining, my dad would crack open the window to the station wagon and when he was smoking in the car, and there was no seatbelts because he cut them out. And, in today's world, it's, someone would be calling a social worker if they saw that, poor kids jumping around in the back of a station wagon. The dad's sitting there with the window closed, smoking a cigarette.
Right.
You're like, what's going on? But this is, now today it's like, if you told my dad back then that we would be, a lot of people would be typing and driving at the same time, he would have thought we were insane. Right. But that's culture change. It happens slowly. And in healthcare and in the world of food, it's something that we don't realize that drives our daily decision making. And this is like what the work you guys are doing and others who are helping people on a day-to-day basis make more kind of more sustainable daily, sustainable changes to the behavior. Right. Where they can, and a lot of it is there's some emotional intelligence and kind of get understanding, being honest with yourself about, what it is that you're possibly doing that is negatively affecting your health, and what can you, how can you change that? How do you address, these issues and actually find more happiness? I think a lot of it is helping people realize that how much the cards are sometimes stacked against them. Yep. That there is an influence every single day. And, in my healthcare industry that I work in, we're good at taking care of people when they're sick, and we thrive on it. But we're not doing disease prevention. We're doing disease screening, primary care. To me, I have a lot of friends who are primary care doctors, and the system is not set up. The world has changed. People's daily decisions are driven so much more than by the influence of what their doctor said a year ago when they saw them last. Yep.
For 10 minutes. Like,
yes,
that's it.
Yeah, exactly. If you're lucky, you get a whole 10 minutes. Yeah. Right. And, eat better. See you next year.
Right. That's right. Stay away from those, stay away from the, I don't even know what they say. Stay away from the sugar. I don't even know if they say that.
And then, there's a McDonald's in the lobby of the hospital.
Yeah. And the doctor's drinking a Diet Coke, like.
Yes. Doctors we're not by any means, examples.
I was sitting in my my doctor's office. This is about 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm the typical American who goes in for a pulse check once a year with my wife actually makes me do. Well, nobody makes me, but she's like, you got to get a physical, and I'm like, all right, I'll go in and get a physical. And
my wife makes me do this.
I'm sitting there in the office after the physical's done, and he sits down in his office and goes through the results of the, what he found, which is, for me, it was nothing. And he literally, there's a can of Coke or Diet Coke. I took a picture and I thought I should post this, but then I thought, I don't need to, stir the hornet's nest. I mean, maybe I do need to stir their hornet's nest. But it just, it's
interesting. I honestly will say, 5-6 years ago, I thought I knew a lot about nutrition. My world kind of changed as this Chuice project kind of took hold, and it's part of what opened me up to it. Is just, and I feel like I'm a better physician for it,
right?
Because it's really given me a new perspective, and I do think, like, the idea of taking a picture in your doctor's office. How do we help sort of the people within the industry that I mostly work in healthcare? How do we bring this knowledge? There's so much great knowledge out there about the power of more plant-based eating, about eating whole food, about lifestyle change. Lifestyle is the disease in this country that we suffer from the most, so that's why what you guys are doing with the Whole Life Challenge. I'm inspired by this. So many people, and you see influencers on social media who really, can influence. I've seen so many lives changed by just you find somebody comes across someone else that they just identify with, whether it be a challenge or there's an individual that, hey, I like their story, and it kind of sounds like my story. And how do I get there to where they are now? I mean, if they did it, I can do it.
Yep. And
that's incredible, that kind of change. And I've seen in people who've done that and led that kind of change for others, for just to change their lifestyle effectively, that they've had an impact that primary care in today's world would never have. Unless your doctor is texting you every day and sending you messages on social media, which makes you wonder, shouldn't there be a new industry within this where there is more collaboration with primary care and with this world of wellness, and in leveraging social media to bring those worlds together? I think is something we have to figure out how to do better. Otherwise, our healthcare industry should just admit it does not do disease prevention and just focus on treating patients when they're sick and doing disease screening. But we can't pretend like we're really doing disease prevention while, lifespan's going down, chronic disease is going up, and there's Krispy Kreme on every corner.
Yeah, right. We had Chris Kresser on the podcast about a month and a half ago, and he kind of laid out his plan. His new book called Unconventional Medicine, I think, outlines his he does a really good job of laying out the problem, the statistics of the problem, and then he proposes a solution. And one of the solutions is leaning on what he calls health coaches. And health coaches are like personal trainers that are experts in how to change your life in your house, and how to come to your house and hold your hand and show you how to empty your pantry and show you how to choose the right foods and show you the crappy food that you think is healthy that's not healthy, and to get rid of it. And so a doctor becomes a trusted higher level advisor, is not coming to your house and helping you do all the logistical stuff. The doctor is interpreting the results of blood panels and that stuff. And
I can guarantee you that there is so much with, Emory University in Atlanta has a health, sort of this integrative health coach certification program. And there's, these things are growing, and it's great because it's non-physicians who really want to help be disease prevention specialists. Yep. And it's phenomenal. It really, there's opportunity in the nonprofit work I do with, I'm a board of directors for Georgia Organics here in Atlanta. And then there's a childhood obesity initiative going on by the Atlanta Falcons Youth Foundation. And I submitted a proposal for that as well. That was based on the health coaching, like you're saying, what Chris had outlined is the idea you have to bring in health coaches to partner with primary care in order to make that work.
Right. How did you, I want to go back because I didn't I don't think I even know this part of the story. Maybe you told me once in a previous conversation. But how did you get involved with Chuice? Like why and how did that? Here you are. You're busy as hell. You don't really need another project. I imagine as an ER doc.
Yeah, it would. To my wife's dismay, I'd like to,
right.
burn the candle at both ends and try to do a lot of different things. But so I got introduced to this whole project in sort of a serendipitous way. So I go back about 30 years with Sanjay Gupta from CNN. Mm-hmm. So we've been best friends since freshman year of college. And Sanjay got to be friends with Liddell, our founder of Chuice, around that time when we both moved to Atlanta in 2001. And Liddell was a trainer at CNN at that time. And so he...
was he training the staff of CNN? Like he was going into the office and training the workers?
Well, he was at the gym.
He was an expert.
At Turner there, that he was training people there. And he and Sanjay got to be friends. And Sanjay was just really kind of mesmerized by Liddell, just his background. Uh-huh. And the fact that his approach to health and healthy living was so unique and kind of driven by a unique upbringing as well. And in terms of, he had a half Native American grandfather who raised him on a farm in Tennessee. And his grandfather couldn't read, write, or drive, Liddell's grandfather. And he was a local medicine man in Lebanon, Tennessee. And he...
What does that mean? I mean, my picture of a medicine man is, like a witch doctor or like,
right.
Full of ritual and voodoo. And I mean, I don't know. I'm making it up. I don't exactly know what that means.
Right. Yeah. It's in this case, it's like, it is about herbs. It's a person people are going to for natural herbal remedies. Mm-hmm. And so in today's world, a lot of those remedies are, those things are substantiated in science. We know the antioxidant potential in sweet potato or turmeric. Mm-hmm. And so Liddell's sort of view on health was really shaped a lot early on, from starting at age 5 by a grandfather who would do work in the farm and then pick a sweet potato out from the ground, dust it off, and that was his snack while he was then moving logs and doing something else. But he would mention that then people would start coming to his grandfather for different herbs and stuff that he would grow, and that would, they were either a little ill or they need whatever people who were inclined to have something more natural.
And he would make like potions or oils or things for them to take. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what sort of from that Native American heritage, he had picked up that. Mm-hmm. So then, so Liddell went on to be an athlete. He eventually was on the West Coast. He was weightlifting, and this is back in the 80s, and he admits to trying everything, from protein powders to steroids to everything. And he said he went back to Tennessee to visit his grandfather. His grandfather was in his 80s at the time. And Liddell's a big guy. He's strapped. He's 6'3", and he's just, at that point, he's a big, bulky guy.
Was he a football player when you said he was an athlete? Was what sports did
he played? Yeah, he played a year of college football, and then he was on the weightlifting circuit with a lot of big names.
Like Olympic weightlifting or bodybuilding?
Bodybuilding.
Okay.
Yeah, and then he, but yeah, I said when he went back at a point where his own health he felt like was actually going downhill. His grandfather was in his 80s and had a firmer handshake than he did. And so at that point, he said he realized he had to change his ways. And if you look back at pictures, Liddell's 52, and he is, he's got the physique, a 25-year-old running back would envy.
Right.
He looks younger now than he did 25 years ago.
Wow.
Look back at pictures, and there's no magic to it. It's just he decided to go. He went back to eating mostly plants. Mm-hmm. And he, he does eat meat once in a while, but he is, for the most part, plant-based, and eats, does a lot of his own herbs and in addition. And it's incredible. I mean, like, so it was, when I got introduced to him, I was skeptical at first. And then slowly I started listening more and realizing that he had a lot of really interesting things to say.
Were you introduced to him as a, how was he presented to you? Like, is this a guy that you were training?
Just a friend, just somebody like he and Sanjay got to be good friends. So they were working out together. And then about 10 years ago, just when I was turning 40, we all started working out together as well.
Got it. Okay.
And so I got interested in this, first arguing with Liddell about stuff and challenging him on this idea of food as medicine. Come on, whatever, hocus pocus, And eventually then I became a believer, and I realized like, oh, I was wrong about so much. And I think like most of us doctors have, I think there's a conceit we can have that like we understand health. What we don't understand is how much culture has changed the equation for health, compared to 30 plus years ago.
I think there's a big risk that doctors take, like to admit that they're wrong about something that they've been prescribing, say, for 30 years or 20 years, or telling their patients. I think you live as an ER doc, you perhaps don't have that same sort of built up practice because people aren't coming to you for that. But if you had been an internal medicine doctor for 20 years and been telling people that food doesn't matter, and it's hard to go back. I mean, I'm not excusing it. I'm not saying, well, that's the reason we don't, but I can just sense if you built a career around one sort of advice to just have the courage to suddenly change course is tough.
Yeah, it is. There's data out there that shows that, let's say New England Journal of Medicine is like our top journal, in terms of if you have incredible methods and there's something important that you're studying, you have to get it, you have to really jump through a lot of hoops to get up to that level of the New England Journal of Medicine or American Medical Association.
Yep.
They show that like a landmark study can come out of one of these big journals, landmark, just change in treatment, that this thing is now, not needed anymore. And this is the new standard. They say that a study like that can come out, and it generally takes about 15 years for it to be adopted into general practice.
Meaning by more than half the doctors, or like, what does it mean to be adopted?
15 years for it to become a new standard where in practice that it's actually being implemented.
By like a certain percentage of...
By most people.
By most people,
I mean, just,
okay.
Yeah.
Like a significant amount of doctors.
Yeah,
right.
It takes a long time. It takes, so to your point, you're right. It is, it's not easy to change people's minds in anything or right. to have opened their mind to a new way of thinking about things. But I think it's supremely important. I think before we can get doctors to really start to figure out the benefit and the potential upside of partnering with health coaches. More of us have to be convinced of the value that there is there.
Yes,
that health coaching plays.
So you had this conversation with Liddell and you became friends. Obviously, he's kind of tugging you in the direction of, hey, maybe he's right and I'm not so right. That still doesn't put you in the chair, in the hot seat of CEO of Chuice. How did that happen? He, as I mentioned earlier, he started this for himself. He created this Chuice, and the early versions weren't always so tasty. I can imagine.
And
God,
Sanjay and I were often, we're trying stuff. We're like, come on, really? and then, I was a skeptic in the beginning, and then I started doing more research, and I started learning that there was a lot more overall opportunity. And then I came across a New Yorker article in 2011 that profiled the CEO of PepsiCo, and she talked about how the line between food and drink was going to be blurred as they try to create more healthy products, and the healthy products, the good for you products, would grow from $10 billion a year to $30 billion by 2020.
Wow.
And just within PepsiCo, which is the second largest food company in the world. And she talked about, she mentioned a quote about snackified drinks and drinkified snacks that are nutritionally targeted. At that point, I had goosebumps, and I kind of closed yeah, I'm like, oh, holy shit, Liddell's created a product. They don't even realize that just, what they're describing. And he's also probably 5 years ahead of
Yep.
anything that they've come up with. And I'm like, I had to be part of this.
Right.
I have to be part of it. I feel like it's almost my duty as a physician who's kind of seen the light that I really want to make sure this is done right.
Yep.
And no gimmicks, no infomercials. And there were people approaching Liddell about it, as he was evolving it into a business. And as I did my research and what he had already started, sort of his initial venture, I thought was still kind of limited. So I brought together sort of a small group investment team, and we came in, and then I look at it back at it now, like, what was I thinking? But
what were you thinking in terms of, like, you didn't really know what you were taking on when you did this?
Yeah.
Or
yeah,
right.
Oh, this will be easy.
Right.
Kind of start and foster and nurture your own company. It's like no big deal.
Yep.
Introduce a new, bring a new product to market, and at that, it's a new category of food.
Yeah. Right.
And so that was I took it on, and after about it's been about 9 months to a year, to both raise the money and put together sort of an operating plan. And there were the ups and downs, and learned a lot. But so that's how I got to that point there of taking on this role, over 5 years ago, and it's been a lot of learning.
Has there been a point at which or one or two things that have happened that have been like, okay, time to throw in the towel, this just isn't going to happen? Like, you just...
it's yeah, I mean, there's on a daily basis, there's frustrations, in any kind of startup, but
is there one thing that comes to mind that's like the...
I hate raising capital. I hate raising money. It's not... over the last 5 years, I've raised about $2 million in total, but hated every second of it.
Right.
So that part, there's the financial frustration part, I think, was probably the biggest thing. But
what's the hardest part of that for you? Is it finding the people to meet with? Is it just the uncomfortableness of asking someone for money?
I think mostly that. It's just not. Yeah, it's just it's awkward. To me, it's just not something that I think some people probably enjoy doing it, are probably better at it.
Yeah,
I'm just not me. But then on the other hand, I think I probably raised that money because of the passion I have for it.
Well, your why. I always tell people how important that is. Like, if you know your why, it's the greatest personal courage maker that exists. When your why becomes stronger than your fear and your resistance, right, then you just forge ahead. You figure it out.
Yeah, and we've had a series of serendipitous events that have happened, over the course, these past 5-6 years. And, it's all of those different kind of things that have happened along the way have kept pointing to the fact that we can scale this.
Yep.
And, we truly are launching something that people will look back at a couple of years now and say, like, well, that makes sense. Why not turn a juice into a whole food?
Yep.
And you already have a whole infrastructure of distribution. That's disruptive to me. Is like why not use the existing infrastructure to actually help people be healthier?
Right.
It can happen. It can actually happen. And I've met some incredible people along the way, and it's amazing to me when you see, like, you can connect the dots and actually then use pop culture to help drive something. Because it's not a doctor who's going to. People don't listen to their doctor. I'm okay with that. To some point, people. I mean, obviously, people want for certain things. People want advice from doctor, but we don't really have a firm place in giving people great advice about really preventing disease.
It's funny because from my point of view, people always say, well, I need to talk to my doctor first, and not that makes them do anything, But that's, from my end, that's the most frustrating thing is they don't know. And I'm not saying that for something radical, they shouldn't talk to their doctor, but there are plenty of things that they can, bump up in their world of health and well-being that doesn't require doctor advice. And not only that, doctor is not the right person to ask anyway. So it's really interesting, the perspective that you give as well. They don't listen to doctors anyway. And I'm like, well, all they want is, their obstacle is, I got to talk to my doctor. So
you should do 20 deadlifts this morning. It's like, well, I don't know. Let me talk to my doctor first.
Right.
I think that sounds like probably a good excuse
to
not do those deadlifts. But it's interesting. It's been, it's been a journey. I'm kind of lucky to be on it, to have a journey like it, and there's no guarantee for that it's gonna succeed, but we've made it beyond 5 years already. I think a lot of startups don't.
Yep.
And I feel like that there's a reason for that. I think it's because it's meant to go somewhere.
Where do you see yourself having the biggest impact in your practice as an ER physician, in your work with Chuice? Do you think you might ever have to choose between the two? And how would you do
I'm
that?
a doctor first. I mean, I love it. I think I'm good at what I do. I really enjoy it. I love, and I know that regardless of any vocation for medicine, just as much as anything else, you meet a lot of people who don't enjoy what they do.
Yeah.
And but I really do. I just turned 50, and I love every single time I go into the ER, and I really value it.
That's awesome.
We're glorified waiters. Really. I mean, we just in the emergency room, especially. You got 7, 6, 7 patients in different rooms, trying to manage lab results and getting something back and doing whatever. So
right.
It's
I never really thought of it that way. That's interesting.
but I definitely enjoy it. But with Chuice, it's I think it's the content side. I enjoy writing. I like writing blogs for the company. I like helping to set the passion and the direction for our higher mission, that it really is in the end. We're trying to figure out how to popularize eating more plants, eating more real food.
Yeah.
And by through convenience and fun, make it exciting. And along the journey, the way my friend Sanjay always describes it is that the best way to teach people something is to do it in a way that they don't realize that they're being taught.
Yeah, right.
That they're learning.
Right.
And so I'm hoping the brand can do that.
Right.
That we can actually kind of educate people along the way, and in a fun way that they don't realize. Like, oh, I know, I walked away with more information about mucus layers and stuff like that.
Right.
Or hopefully, maybe not always mucus focused, but maybe something, a lot of different angles on how to that they can go maybe share with other people that helps other people learn how their body works a bit better.
How do you make it work in your own personal life? Like you're incredibly, I mean, you've got 2 full-time jobs. You don't really have a part-time job. How do you make a schedule work? What is your strategy?
It changes every week and every month because my schedule for the ER it shifts. And, I think I have an incredible wife who is very tolerant of the fact that I spread myself very thin, and she's the glue for that, so that I hope she listens to this.
At least that one soundbite.
Exactly.
I'll clip it out for you.
Cut that. Please cut that out for me. Happy birthday, darling. Listen to this. So I think that really is, that truly, honestly, is a key thing, because I would think I would go insane if because we have a 10-year-old and 12-year-old, and it's tough to balance. Fortunately, I'm not somebody who's ever needed 8 hours of sleep a night.
Right.
5-6 hours for the most part seems fine. My brain's too active.
I'm kind of jealous. I'm jealous of that. I mean, I need my 7 or 8 hours to feel really kind of together and with it, and I wish I didn't need as much, but.
Yeah, I guess my answer should be that it's old Chuice, but that definitely
we might
plays a role.
We might call BS on that, because it's not.
Yeah,
it can't be. There's not one thing for anybody.
It definitely it helps me balance. I definitely wouldn't I wouldn't feel as good because I wouldn't be able to get that much fiber in a day.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
because I don't like salads. I don't like making them. I'm
Yep.
not a fan of eating salads that much. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, I think part of it is there's passion. I think for it, I think there's always that bigger picture and serendipity. It kind of has been great, you know, just to keep pushing things along. Where, you know, I definitely would. And friends have advised, and I understand that there's some point in a startup, especially, you have to draw a line in the sand. And for whatever reason, you know, it's kind of worked out for me.
Well, on a micro level, how do you? What are your tools that you like to use to keep things together? Like, do you use a shared calendar app? Does somebody else manage it for you? Do you manage, you know, your to-do list? Do you have a to-do list? How do you keep it all together? Do you use handwritten notes, or like what's your system?
Yeah, you know, it's a couple of things. You know, one, you know, everything is driven by my work calendar for the ER. You know, because everything is about being rested and making sure that I have energy to, you know, give that 100% when I'm there. So, you know, that calendar drives everything for me. And then I do like there are project management tools out there like Trello and these others where, you know, for people like me who do have a lot going on, it's nice to be able to have something that's central that I can kind of, hey, okay, here's the big picture for things that are going on for this week, this month, or, you know, for this thing that I've got, you know, for whether it's at work and meetings, the hospital, or whether it's, you know, stuff for content and writing for Chuice or strategy. And, you know, a lot of it's been, you know, in meetings with different investors and trying to figure out who, you know, how does this all fit together?
Yep.
So that has helped me, I think, kind of structurally be able to step back and say, okay, wait a second, I'm off track here. You know, this is something I need
so
to
you
get back.
like reviewing your weeks or your what's going on, like you use these tools to, like Trello or
yeah it is, you know, it is. I'll try review, you know, at least once a week and look at where I am, and then try kind of, a lot of things always change, and that's especially in the world of startups. There's constant pivoting.
Yeah, right. Yep.
You know, and so right now trying to identify and execute on a new package.
Is that your biggest challenge coming up? Is
that's
the packaging change?
Yeah, it's been it's kind of in the last few weeks been most exciting too, because it didn't seem like it was even feasible without raising a lot more money. And all of a sudden it's open. The opportunities there.
Wow.
So
that's exciting.
Yeah, it is. I think so. I think it can help us in the kind of, just as you mentioned, the unique user experience that comes with our product. And you know, we spent also a lot of the focus and time has been on kind of converting to an e-commerce company. So because we ship all over the United States. Yep. And so I brought on somebody to help run all of that, who's got great experience with that, and really get the foundation infrastructure for that set up, because you know, we are, you know, trying to get ourselves in a position to, you know, go from being able to make 1,000 bottles a week to making 10,000 plus a week. Yeah. You know, as soon as possible. But all those things are lining up nicely, which is great.
Right. That's amazing. Do you work out?
Yeah. You know, I got into, I think my interest in medicine started out because I was an athlete growing up, and just that was my life. I think I picked emergency medicine because it's because it's shift work. You know, the downsides are you work weekends and evenings, but the upside is that there's a lot of other stretches of time you have off. Yeah, right. And you're not married to the hospital. Right. And so,
are you on call? You don't have if you're an ER, you're not on call, right?
Right. Yeah, we're not on call. We are. You know, it is all shift work. So you're assigned to a shift. Yep. And so it varies, you know, from week to week. And we have some people who are just like exclusively work at nighttime, work overnight, and then others like me that kind of varies, kind of a mixture of all of it. but I try to find some time to balance it by, when there's those off times, trying to stay competitive with sports more than anything, because that's always what's driven me.
So you do, when you work out, do you do workouts in the gym, or do you try to play more sports and just have fun, or what's your time of day that you do?
When I have time, I think working out with a trainer is then the sort of the best value for me, because I am so distractible.
Yeah, right.
That if I'm doing it on my own, I find I just can't get it done.
Yep.
So it either has to be, with a friend who's a trainer, or Liddell, when I've had more time, and he's a gifted trainer on top of being an incredible food / health innovator.
Right.
And, but I learned a lot more about working out, but through him. But in the end, what drives me most is competition. And so, I played competitive squash for 25 years, and
cool.
My kids are now interested in playing, and so I'm trying to figure out how to make time for that to get competitive again. And
trying. You mean for you to get competitive so you can keep beating your kids, or you sound like a tyrant?
Definitely. Their old man, can't be seen as a dud. It's but no, I kind of learned from osmosis. My dad was very athletic. I grew up sort of surrounded this idea that you make time in your life for sports, because that's what's important.
Yep.
But so try to run. I don't like running long distance. I like a mile at most, and so sprinting and running. And then nowadays I realize, which didn't realize 5-6 years ago, that it is so much more about weightlifting, and you can probably do a lot more in 20-30 minutes 3 times a week than you can do going for a jog 5 days a week.
Yeah, squeezing it in actually is helpful. In terms of ratcheting up the intensity, raising your heart rate, giving your body these intervals to adapt. I had Martin Gabala on the podcast. He wrote a book called The 1 Minute Workout. He's an exercise physiologist who is at McMaster University in Canada, and has done just a tremendous amount of research on interval training, and just really cool stuff. Because it makes you realize that there's no excuse for not having time. Like just 10 minutes. 10 minutes is, that's what we talk about in the Whole Life Challenge. Even the highest level athlete can actually benefit from doing a 10-minute workout. So, it's pretty cool.
There's no doubt, and that's the thing. Yeah, trying to get people to do it on a daily basis. I remember when I first started working out with Liddell, that I'd be at home putting food away or helping out laundry, and I'm doing walking lunges with a laundry basket, or all of a sudden I got a can of tomatoes, and I'm like, hey, I can just I can do some raises with this, and just working on my deltoids, and it's like I realized oh wow, I think it helped me get a lot more respect for then people who are helping others do that on a day-to-day basis. And I liked always that simple approach.
Right.
And when we would, Liddell and I, the best workouts we had were in a park and on a playground.
Right.
And the most intense workouts I've ever had, was with Liddell doing that. And it was amazing.
Yeah, out here we use the beach for that kind of stuff. We use parks too, but the beach is always a really fun place because you get hard sand, you get soft sand, you get a hill going down to the water and up from the water. You get the water too.
Right.
The beach is a pretty cool place to train.
Yeah. And I always look at it like nowadays, I think sort of the end goal for me is when I look at the parents of the kids I'm taking care of in the ER, and I cover 6 different hospitals across Metro Atlanta, and some out in the outskirts, what people would call the country. And you see disparities in general health, as you can imagine, depending on where you're going. And I've come to realize that these parents love their kids more than anything, and a lot of us in society point the finger and blame these parents for their kids being unhealthy and for themselves being unhealthy. And I don't do that. I don't think it's true. I see how these parents love their kids the same way I love my kids. And they're just doing what is socially acceptable. Right. They're trying to help. They want their kids to be happy. So they're going to give them, they follow social cues. And I for everyday people, how can they get access to the knowledge of, whole life challenge? How can they benefit from this idea of being able to make small adjustments and do, in even 5-10 minutes, something? How can they get it sort of introduced to the concept, like 5-10 minutes every day can change your life. And so I look at it in the same way with the food options. I had an epiphany at several years ago, 3-4 years ago. This was Chuice project already started, and we went on a Disney cruise. So we drove to Florida for that, and we're driving back in the middle of Georgia, nowhere, like, this is out in the outskirts, and kids had to pee, and as usual, I would start yelling at my kids because I'm like, I'm making great time, and you have to pee now, like, So it's a regular dad thing. But then I realized, okay, I am making no sense, and so let me stop at this gas station. So they're in the bathroom, and I'm as usual doing my research, looking at the beverage shelves. And here we are in the middle of nowhere, Georgia, and there you have Fiji water, vitamin water, and all these fancy energy drinks and all these things that were 10-15 years ago. Before that, you only find them in nightclubs and boutique hotels. In really high-end gourmet grocery stores. Now they're everywhere.
Right.
And I just realized, like, like pop culture can make some changes. So, for those parents and the kids I'm taking care of and their kids, these are people who are, many of whom they're busy in their lives. They stop at a gas station, they get a hot dog or a milkshake for breakfast. Or they're in the drive-thru at Chick-fil-A waiting, they're going to get a milkshake with their chicken biscuit. And we just need, if we popularize better eating habits, whole food eating habits, make it easy, convenient and fun, and have, famous people help promote it. You can have such a dramatic impact on public health, by doing that. And if the brand can embody mindfulness and kind of the same ideals, principles you guys are espousing, and help champion that as well. To me, that's a recipe for success, and something that's driven me to continue to be part of this. Is because I don't think we should accept the fact that it's okay for lifespan to be going down for the next generation of kids, right? Because of the way they eat, the way they move or don't move, And so it's worth putting the time and the effort into it, and I think hopefully there's not hopefully it keeps working, and it keeps growing into something.
Well, it's a noble mission. And I think that it's very similar to the mission that we have. You're just coming from a different end of it. And, I just appreciate so much that you're willing to do this. It takes a lot to create a new beverage category. And, you're a modern day warrior, you're out, you're like Sir Lancelot, for God's sakes.
Yeah. Hopefully there's no Guinevere in this story. I don't know if there is, but I appreciate that. It's really nice. It's what you guys are doing as well. I think it's take my hat off to you as well, because it is noble work. It's not easy. It's uphill,
right?
Not downhill, and but it's worth it.
When are we going to be able to get Chuice out here on the West Coast?
Well, you can get it. We ship it there.
Okay.
Now, we ship. We have a lot of West Coast
direct
subscribers.
Ship. Yep.
Yeah, we direct ship. There's a little surcharge. There's a surcharge for West Coast just because it's a perishable product. This is not. It's.
I had it in my fridge. I didn't notice that there was hey, drink this by, a certain number of days, and I had it in my fridge for a good 2 weeks, and I drank a couple of them, and there wasn't a problem.
So I sent
maybe that's risky.
I sent you the raw product. So we use a technique called high pressure processing. So it's cold pasteurization. So it's there's no heat, there's no chemicals, but like Evolution Fresh and Suja, they use the same technique, high pressure processing. So the value for a consumer is you're not introducing preservatives, you're not heating it.
Yep.
Heat pasteurization helps make it safer, which I'm all about. But it also kills a lot of nutrients.
Right.
So high pressure processing has been a great sort of technology. And
so I kind of took my life into my own hands, waiting that long to drink some of them, because there were a lot. There were like 12 or 14 in the thing you sent.
I sent you some of that special raw stuff that didn't go through HPP, but all the product that we sell online goes through HPP.
Okay.
And there's an expiration date.
How long is the shelf life?
We call it 35 days.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's great.
Although it could be longer.
Right.
But for us, we just feel like the taste and texture is best if you have it.
Yep.
Sort of sooner rather than later.
Sujit, what's the best way to find Chuice? But then also, what's the best way to find you?
Chuice is chuice.com, CHUICE.com. And people, you can order online, and except for West Coast, we do free delivery for 12 bottle orders. We have a lot of subscribers who are just finding the benefit of having 12 bottles every other week, or there are several people who do it weekly.
Wow.
Usually we have a couple in Martha's Vineyard. She admitted that she and her husband fight over their Chuice, but they get it. they get 12 bottles once a week.
Yep.
So that's how to find Chuice at chuice.com. For me, I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Dr. Sujit Sharma.
Okay, great.
And not as active as I should, should be at times. I try to.
We won't hold you to it.
There was a time when I was. I appreciate that. Since time is limited at times.
No, right. So, I just really want to thank you again for taking the time to be on the podcast and for doing what you do, and especially what you do. I don't know if I've meant, but what you do as a doctor. I mean, there are two massive elements to your life, and the third is being dad. So there are three really massive elements. Oh, and then you're a husband too.
Let's not
forget that one.
Let's not underrepresent that at all.
Yeah, no, right. So I appreciate you taking the time, because I know you don't have a whole lot of it, and I wish you all the best. I'm looking forward to watching Chuice grow. I want to try the new packaging. Now that
I can't wait to introduce you to it. I will send you some.
When will that be? Is it going to be 6 months, 3 months? Do you know? Yet?
I'm hoping within the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, the juicy super salad.
Love it. All right. Well, thanks again.
Thank you. Really appreciate having me on.
The Whole Life Podcast is produced by our podcast team, Winslow Jenkins, Becca Borowski, and Ernie Hurtado. You can find all of our episodes, links, and complete show notes at wholelifechallenge.com/podcast. The way that I've found is the best way to listen to podcasts is to subscribe so that episodes automatically get delivered right to your mobile device. You can do that in any podcast app on your phone. And hey, if you like the podcast, please do me a favor. Go to iTunes and give it a 5-star rating. And recommend it to your friends. I'm Andy Petronic, and thanks so much for listening.